Alright guys, welcome back to another Destiny 2 video. Now, I'm going to be doing a little bit of a breakdown for the Edge of Fate official gameplay reveal. Now, you might be thinking this is a little bit of a late video to record, and yes, generically, you will be correct by saying that because there are a lot of breakdowns on the Edge of Fate. However, I'm going to be taking a lore point of view from this. I haven't seen many breakdowns of this trailer whereby people give influence of their knowledge when it comes to the lore of Destiny 2, and there's a few points here in this breakdown that I think will be brand new to you by watching this video versus just a different generic breakdown where people just say that's a hand cannon and it uses arc. You know what I mean? So what we're going to do to kick things off is we're going to play this all the way through, just straightforward, and then I'll go back to it and I'll just go to the bits that I'm interested in. All right, it's mainly the end, if I'm being quite honest with you. That's where we're going to be fixating a lot of our time because I've got a lot to say about it. All right, guys, let's just start the trailer now. Good old Bungie logo there.
Observe, connect, conceal. Guardian, I had a vision. Conform, comply, return. They just wanted to show us disasters. Observe, connect, conceal. I'm not human anymore.
Oh, that's sick.
Conform, comply. No one else should know what this feels like. Enough. Terminate your suspicion, Commander. Remove your scornful blindfold.
Oh man, it's so sick.
Observe.
How the stasis just there.
Conceal. Conform. Comply. Return. Observe. Connect. Conceal. Conform. Comply. Connect.
Listen to the voice in the background.
Return.
Okay. So there's a lot there, and regardless of gameplay and regardless of all the cool new weapons and the arc stasis weapon and all that sort of jazz that is in this gameplay trailer, you would have heard Lodi's voice from start to finish where he's basically repeating the same words over and over. At some point in the gameplay reveal trailer, he actually says that he's no longer human. Yeah, there's a few beats to pick up on there. Now, we know that Lodi was there during the collapse, and how do we know that? We know that because of this final bit here, where we can see him rising up through the center here with the pyramid ships in the background, and we know that this is Chicago because this building that is cracked here in the middle and kind of toppled over, that is actually a building that's in Chicago right now in our real life. That is the building. But also, if we just break it down from the very beginning here, the beginning of these ending parts, you can see that we've got Lodi with his glasses on, and in the reflection of his glasses, we can see that there's a train coming towards him. It's a Chicago train. This would imply that he's about to get hit by a train. He also says that he's no longer human anymore in this trailer as well. This could mean a few story beats. We are really just assuming at this point, however, they're pretty fucking good assumptions. So based on what we're looking at right now, it seems to be clear that Lodi gets hit by a train. Maybe that's how he dies. Maybe this is how Lodi becomes dead, I guess. This is how Lodi gets killed. He gets hit by a train. You then see the force of the train shoot him out of the portal, which you can see during the gameplay reveal trailer. You actually see this a very similar type of style of this portal actually on the entrance of the train. There's actually gameplay of a Titan walking through it, but this would indicate that Lodi is flying at the force that he is because he's been hit by the train, right? So we can speculate that this is what kills him. Name one human that survives the hit of a train, right? So let's just go by the logical assumption that this is how Lodi dies. He then says later into the trailer or throughout this trailer that he's no longer human. We also see this part here where he kind of undergoes this kind of like transformation, let's just say. So again, assuming that Lodi is dead at this point, maybe this is now the 9 tapping into Lodi in some way and bringing him back to life. He then says that he's no longer human. Maybe they brought him back as an emissary. Who knows? The events of Orin going from emissary to Orin, I believe happened after this, because this is really, really old. This is like collapse times. There are 5 faces here, so we can see 1 in the middle, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I don't want to go too much off on a tangent on this specifically, because this is the unlikely assumption. However, we already know based on the lore that the 9 are divided between the 4 and the 5. We specifically see Lodi's face here split into 5 different ways. Maybe this is the influence of the 5 bringing Lodi back to life, and thus there you go. So this scene here where he's falling into water, the last time we saw this was actually during the collapse, where we see the pyramid kind of shapes go beneath the ocean surface, but then you see him rise up here during what appears to be the collapse. So based on the way that this trailer is structured, we can somewhat assume that Lodi dies by getting hit by a train. He undergoes this transformation whereby it revives him and brings him back to life. Maybe that's due to the 9 in general, or specifically due to the 5. The animation of the 5 faces coming out of him is probably that thing happening, let's just say. And then we see him rise up from the depths of Chicago during the collapse is happening in the background. In the trailer, when he says he's no longer human, well, he was brought back to life. Maybe the 9 brought him back to life as a different type of thing. We already know that Orin, who was a awoken guardian, was brought back as the emissary. We know that the Jovian species for Xur was taken by the 9 as well. Not taken as in the taken that we know and love as the enemy in the game. I just mean verbally taken. So yeah, those are my speculations of that. However, I think it goes a little bit deeper than that, and the lore guys would have touched this as well, but this is the bit that I feel like you guys might learn a little bit, a thing or two. This is not matter of fact. This is purely just based off speculation, going by what I know of the lore of Destiny at the moment. So there are 3 guardians in the lore right now that have also been in Chicago, and those 3 guardians are Kabir, Praedif, and Pahanin. All 3 of those guardians you'll never ever meet in the actual game of Destiny. The only way they'll know about this fire team is if you either played Destiny 1, I'm not saying they were in Destiny 1, but they were in Grimoire cards of Destiny 1, or you spend a lot of your time on the Ishtar Collective, which is pretty much what I do every single day. This fire team is a fairly famous fire team, and they branch out into so many different directions of the lore. Like, I'm speaking even having interactions with Reed 7, and if you guys don't know Reed 7, you absolutely need to read up the lore of that as well, because it's fucking insane. But anyway, Pahanin, Praedif, and Kabir, very, very famous fire team. Now, the reason why I bring these 3 up is because these 3 were specifically in Chicago, and they were specifically in Chicago around the time of the Great Hunt. And if you guys don't know what the Great Hunt lore is, that is when the Vanguard issued out the death of every Ahamkara, every wish dragon. Basically, the reason why they were doing that, the TLDR, is because wish dragons were heavily influencing the reality of life, and it needed to basically be put under control. And the way that they put that under control was by organizing the Great Hunt. If you're a Star Wars fan, it's basically Order 66, where they kill every single Jedi. It's the same thing here, that they basically wanted to kill and just get rid of every Ahamkara that there is. Hence why in the Last Wish raid, you fight Riven. Riven is an Ahamkara, but her title in the actual name is specified the last known Ahamkara, because she is the last known to be alive, because they murdered all of them. The reason why Riven's still alive, by the way, goes back to Amara Sov lore. Again, I'm not going to talk too much about that because I want to focus on Lodi here, but again, it's absolutely insane. If you need to check that out. But anyway, Praedif, Pahanin, and Kabir were in Chicago. They were killing Ahamkaras. They are a ruthless fire team. Praedif, he absolutely loves the actual idea of killing Ahamkaras. The words that he was using, I don't know specifically in the lore, but I know he was basically verbally expressing how excited he was at the killing of Ahamkara, and how he wished, the keyword there being wished, that feeling doesn't end. Alright, he wished that feeling never ended, basically. The reason why I want to specify on that again is because the whole premise of Ahamkaras, the wish dragons, is that they make wishes come true. They make your wish come true in a twisted way that isn't in the way that you initially wanted it to happen. So park that to one side. You then have Kabir. Kabir is a ruthless guardian. Kabir is so fucking strong at Sunbreal. He is very, 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 very strong. And then you've got Pahanin. Pahanin isn't really spoken too much about. However, what is said about Pahanin is that they can simply just look at an Ahamkara and it would die. Now, obviously, that isn't some power causal power whereby they just look at an Ahamkara and it dies. That is a verbal expression, as if to say Pahanin is really fucking strong. The fact that they can just simply look at a Ahamkara and it's basically dead already really just goes to show the raw strength of this fire team. Who was around during this time? I believe Lodi was as well. Now, obviously, the Great Hunt happened after the collapse. However, what's to say that they weren't there before? They were already in Chicago during the Great Hunt. Maybe they had some interaction there. Maybe when the Nine maybe plucked some pieces of Chicago out and put it onto Kepler. By the way, they've done that with the Prophecy Dungeon as well, with the locations that were stolen in the game already. Maybe we learn more about that fire team, because honestly, the lore around that is pretty insane, and it would be really, really cool to have maybe conversations with Lodi, who has experienced other interactions with other fire teams that we know and love. Because, like I said, the lore on this fire team is unbelievable. And sadly, they're all dead. Not a single one of them are alive right now. You will never ever experience a member of this fire team in the game. Again, I'll give you the very quick TLDR. Long story short, Praedyth, Pahanin, and Kabir went into the Vault of Glass. The Vault of Glass is a raid that we know and love. We love the Vault of Glass. It's a nice reprised raid from Destiny 1. Basically, they all died. Well, actually, no, that's a lie. They didn't all die there. Pahanin survived, although Pahanin is now dead, and I'll just touch on that in just a moment. So basically, remember when I mentioned that Praedyth wished that feeling never ended? As Praedyth was killing the Ahamkara, that wish was granted. It was granted. When they went into the Vault of Glass, and they basically got to the final encounter, Praedyth got trapped in the vault. What does this mean? Being trapped in the Vault of Glass created an endless time loop, meant that Praedyth is now reliving the same feeling over and over and over and over, and there is nothing he can do to stop it. That is a wish that was granted by the Ahamkara in the most sadistic way. So as you run the Vault of Glass raid with your fire team right now, Praedyth is still there watching timeline after timeline after timeline, and there's nothing he can do about it. He is trapped forever in an endless loop. And what makes it even worse is that the Vex are also showing Praedyth alternate timelines at the exact same time, which, let's just say, are not the most friendly. There's also separate lore which kind of hints that Praedyth came across Myr Sundaresh in the endless time loop. Again, not going to speak too much of that. That lore goes off in a completely different direction. So that's Praedyth. Praedyth, we can basically say that Praedyth is dead. You actually see Praedyth's skeleton in the Vault of Glass in Destiny 1. So yeah, Praedyth is dead, stuck in an endless time loop in the Vault of Glass, never ever coming out. It's just not going to happen. Kabir is also dead. Again, this lore goes really, really deep. Kabir basically was being taken over by the Vex. And turned into a Vex unit. Kabir knew that he wasn't going to make it out alive. The whole reason as to why he wasn't going to make it out alive, by the way, when it came to the Vault of Glass, and again, I'm going to talk in gameplay terms now, just so people can understand. They basically got to the final encounter, and they couldn't complete it. They didn't have the mechanics necessary to complete the final encounter. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the Aegis Shield. Now, park that to one side. Kabir was being taken over by the Vex. He was literally turning into a Vex unit. During his last moments, he used the last bit of his light to transform that light into the Aegis Shield. The Aegis Shield is the exact mechanic that we use in the game right now to protect ourselves from the debuff that you get when you go into Mars, when you go into Venus, so that you can complete the Vault of Glass raid. If this fire team never had gone into the Vault of Glass, and if Kabir never used the last of his light as he was turning into a Vex unit to create the Shield of Ages, then we wouldn't be able to complete it today. Just think about that for a moment. They were never ever going to complete that encounter. They were inevitably going to die. So to make it easier for everyone that eventually comes into the Vault of Glass, he created the literal mechanic right now that we use in the game so that we can complete that final encounter safely. Oh my god, it just blows my mind. I love this lore so much. Little side note for all of the Destiny Rising fans out there. Destiny Rising is not lore canon to Destiny whatsoever. However, the reason why I'm bringing it up is because Kabir actually has a shield in his hand as a playable character in Destiny Rising, which is in the very familiar shape of the Shield of Ages. Now, canonically, it doesn't make sense because he needed to die for that shield to even be a thing, and he never used a shield in the lore as far as we know in the actual game that we play. However, there's a little hint, a little nod to that lore from the Destiny Rising team just there. If you run the Vault of Glass raid in Destiny 1, there is a extremely rare chance that you may come across a Vex Goblin or a Vex Hobgoblin that doesn't shoot you, doesn't engage you, and in fact waves at you from a distance. We wonder who that is. Now, it's not confirmed that this specifically is Kabir. The only thing that we know is that Kabir did in fact turn into a Vex unit, and that he did in fact use the last of his light to create the Aegis Shield. But the fact that you have a friendly Vex unit within that raid that doesn't engage with you and does in fact wave at you, you can put 2 and 2 together. It's not officially confirmed, but it just makes sense. Now, Pahanin. Pahanin actually escaped the Vault of Glass. Pahanin actually managed to get out of the Vault of Glass and survived the entire raid. Didn't complete the raid, but survived the entire raid. It is with my great satisfaction, and the reason why I'm saying this is because I absolutely love Thorn, and Thorn is my favorite exotic weapon in both lore and gameplay. Pahanin was killed by Dredging Yor, which is it just blows my mind. When the rumors and the stories started going around about Dredging Yor after he had become corrupted, after his rose gun was corrupted into the gun that we know and love today being Thorn, the stories went around the last city. And again, keep in mind how strong we mentioned Pahanin was at the beginning of this video. Pahanin did not even want to leave the last city and just didn't even want to encounter Dredging Yor because of the amount of stories that were going around with him just being on an absolute killing spree, especially with the shadows of Yor being in the Crucible as well. But again, that's a whole separate lore. I'm not even going to get into that, but it's so fucking good. Pahanin eventually gets found by Dredging Yor, and the lore specifically says that the body and the ghost was found completely decimated and destroyed, and that you could see that there was remnants of Thorn there as well. So they came to the conclusion that it was Dredging Yor that found Pahanin. But I love the lore of the Dredgens. I absolutely love Dredging Yor. That's a whole separate thing that goes way back to the Man with the Golden Gun lore book from Destiny 1. However, yeah, Pahanin managed to get out of the Vault of Glass and actually was killed and murdered by Dredging Yor, meaning that Thorn has absorbed and eaten Pahanin's light, which is incredible. Anyway, the reason why I wanted to give you that whole background story of that specific fire team is because it might have been the case whereby when they were in Chicago at some point, maybe they met Lodi at some point. Maybe there is grimoire cards or lore books or story beats somewhere within Chicago or in Kepler, plucked out by the 9, whereby we learn more about this fire team because of the potential interaction with Lodi. Maybe Lodi is able to provide more information about the fire team as well, because as much as what I've said, there's not really much else. I mean, that there is a situation whereby Kabir met up with Reed 7 in the lore. Reed 7 is obviously part of the fire team that's with Aisha and Shayora, that went on an absolute rampage when she found out that Guardians in the lore were using stasis, and actually started to hunt down every Guardian using stasis and literally outright murdered them. Shayora was actually compared to Dredging Yor at one point. Again, I'm not even going to go into that, but a little quick nod to Reed 7 real quick before I move on. If you watch the final shape cinematic, that Titan that gets his head cut in half along with his ghost, that was Reed 7. Reed 7 got killed by the Witness. Anyway, yes, I'm very excited for the Edge of Fate. I'm very excited to see the corruption and whatever's gone on with Lodi. He mentions that he's not human. Maybe he's become an emissary now that Orin is not an emissary. Obviously, that happens later because this is during the collapse. But maybe there is some intertwine there, something like that. I don't know. But I'm excited. I would absolutely love to know more about the Vault of Glass fire team. I would love to know more about Pradev, Kabir, and Pahanin, because they're very 3 famous Guardians, amongst others. But again, I won't get into that. I feel like Lodi will be answering a lot of questions for us. Alison, who is part of the narrative team, I believe she's the lead narrative. She also works in the final shape, so I'm fairly confident that we're going to have a fantastic story ahead of us. She actually included Destiny 1 lore in the final shape. So the fact that she wasn't even around during Destiny 1 and she used story beats from Destiny 1 and put that into the final shape, like the Vanguard there, which most people don't know about. Yeah, I'm fully optimistic that this is going to be absolutely fine and that we are in good hands. But I just wanted to make this a very quick video, and hopefully you guys learned something from this, because the very much famous fire team that we know and love, maybe Lodi knows them in some way. But I think there's a lot of questions that need to be answered. I'm very excited to see where the story goes. And yeah, let's just see what happens. Again, I could be completely wrong with everything that I've just said, and that is absolutely fine. I just hope that you've taken away from this video some extra awesome story beats about 3 fire team members that not many people talk about. So yeah, we'll leave it there. Guys, let me know if you want more lore videos, because honestly, I love the game so much. I've been playing this now for about 11 years. And yeah, the lore is something that I know and love, and I can honestly rant about ages. Just to put it into perspective, this video right now is 23 minutes unedited. The video that I lost yesterday was an hour and 23 minutes long, pre-edited. So that just really gives you how much of a tangent I could go off about this whole thing. Anyway, guys, I'm going to throw it back to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below. Is the lore of this game something that you are interested in? Do you want more videos like this? Let me know if you do. And yeah, let's see what Lodi brings to the table in the Edge of Fate. Guys, thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.